All right. Today I'm joined by Corbyn Tyson. He's the founder and creative director at Frank and Harvey, a production and brand agency. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, James. It's great.
Awesome. Well, let's jump in right into it, and love to hear more about kind of your background and story, and kind of what led you to starting Frank and Harvey.
Yeah, so Frank and Harvey is my company, and it's named after my two great grandfathers. Um, and the .com was available. But my joke is that I accidentally own an agency. My background was in graphic design and video production, and we had several customers that we would do video production for, and they were upset with their current agency situation. And um, I kept thinking maybe it's time to start an agency. And then one of our customers kind of shared the budgets of what they were spending on certain things and not super satisfied. And I got in the car and called my wife, and I was like, I think we have an ad agency, because that large customer offered us to be agency of record and asked us to put a team together. And so we put a team together, and then here we are. We have an ad agency now.
I love
So
that.
yeah.
Yeah, taking advantage of an opportunity when opportunities present themselves, especially I've seen this over and over again, is especially in the agency service based world, whether that's like poor service or price to value is out of sorts for brands. That's when new opportunity arises, and usually comes down to people who they trust. But how did that start? Was that was so like initial clients kind of was the kind of the fire starter that you already had a
Yeah.
relationship with, and then it kind of grew from
So
there?
initially we started off as pretty much doing production and branding, which is kind of funny because now that's really what we focus on. Um, and um, and we were actually servicing other agencies. That was like our main client base, was other agencies that didn't want to do video production and didn't want to bring that in house. And so I had 4 or 5 different large agencies that we did a lot of production work for, and then every once in a while they'd have us come in and fill in for a creative director. And so my background is either working at agencies or helping agencies. And the joke in the production world was like the evil corp of the big agency, and now we're trying to be that. And so um I when we started, I kind of sat down with the team that we assembled, and I just said, let's do all the things that we hated at XYZ agency that we either worked for or worked with. And so that's where we kind of started. We said yes to everything. And then over time, we've just kind of narrowed it down to be like, hey, we're sort of your fractional creative director. We don't like messing with digital. We don't really love email campaigns. And so we did a couple of things where we found partners that would subsidize that lack that we had, but we would do it because it was a lot of money, and we did it well. At least myself and Sheila, who helps run the company, we were like, we really hate this stuff. We don't love living in the data. We love living in the story, and we love creating stories and kind of figuring out what that human connection is with a brand.
Yeah, and a super valuable aspect of it, but I think it's so interesting, like, you really found, like, maybe areas other people didn't wanna do that you could capitalize on and really focus on and just be experts in, and I think that's where so many opportunities are in and around agencies, is there's so many legs underneath the marketing and advertising umbrella, like, there's so many different opportunities. It's hard for an agency to do everything and do everything at a very high level, and I think that's why most agencies that I've talked to and have experienced is that they partner with strategic solutions in order to execute specific things that they are not an expert in, or they just don't have the bandwidth to maintain a full team because not every client has demand for that specific product or service. And if you have a whole team, then you're kind of forced or obligated to sell a service, whether it makes sense or not for a brand, just because you have overhead and staff and a team and resources and everything that you got to cover.
Yeah, and I learned that in the production world, as a producer and a director. It was like, if we're shooting a car commercial, we're gonna bring in the car guys. If we're shooting we used to do stuff for Sargento cheese, and it was like, if you're doing a cheese commercial, you're going to bring in the cheese guy or the cheese food stylist, right? To make that happen. And I've really applied that to my agency, where it's like every client has a different need, and it's impossible to do it all, especially with as budgets shrink, they keep shrinking. And so we just decided, let's do the things that we love, and let's do the things that we know we can deliver on. And then it becomes a sustainable and enjoyable business. When we were doing websites, I would get a call on a Sunday at midnight, and clients freaking the fuck out. And I'm like, no, I don't really love doing that. And there's a lot of people out there that love doing that way more than I would ever do. And so in some ways, we've kind of formed like a little bit of a collective where we're all friends and we're not trying to steal each other's customers. And I really see that being sort of the future of agencies, is these small little boutiques that then have all these connections and all these people that they trust and they rely on. Because at the end of the day, when you become the agency of record, it really is built on trust. They trust that you're going to do the best for them, and we really try to do that. So when we first started, we had a really, really hard time finding SEO that we could trust. I mean, that industry, as you know, is
Mhm.
fairly scammy. And we had a customer that was paying a lot of money for 4 or 5 years, and when we got in under the hood, they hadn't done SEO in 4 or 5 years, but they were billing. And that story is repeatable almost on every new business call I'm on. So it's like, oh, I've got a team now that I trust, and they're actually going to deliver. And that's been how we've kind of formed this collective of different agencies where we're scratching their back, they're scratching my back, and it works out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. It's really complementary services that you can partner on where it's not competitive, but it's strategic in terms of my client needs not just branding and storytelling, but also needs content distribution. It needs SEO, it needs organic, needs all, there's so many different specialized services. But I couldn't agree more. I think all real relationships are all built on like a foundation of trust. And if you don't have that established trust, reliability, then you can't really grow. But I think what's really interesting, like your SEO example, is that like branding and creative, like you can't hide from, right? It's like you got to show me the creative you've done and what you've done recently, and you can't hide from that. Versus, I think there's so many SEO agencies, as anybody can access or start those. And same thing in like the paid environment that I live in, is that anybody could start it. And there's no certificate or credentials you have to show that you're a legitimate agency or not. You just have to be able to pitch. But it's easy to hide because if you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what's good SEO versus bad SEO or examples or whatnot, then it's hard to identify players that are faking it versus ones that aren't. Versus
Yeah,
creative,
and
you could see the
most of our
creative,
customers, they don't know what the
right?
heck's going on under the hood. They just are like, okay, here's 10 grand a month to make sure this works. And then it is ripe for the picking at sometimes. But I tell my team all the time, I'm like, hey, I'm not in it for a quick buck today. I'm in it for the long haul. And we want to have customers that, one of my customers, we've been doing stuff for them for 14 years now. And that's what we're going for. And in fact, we're redoing our website, and the slogan I came up with is like, Frank and Harvey, you can trust us with your dog. One of my customers, we had like a 2 day shoot, and I had never met her, and that was like on a Thursday, Friday. On Monday, she called me and she's like, "Hey, I just moved to the area. I've got to kennel my dog while I'm on vacation. Where should I take my dog?" And I was like, "Holy shit! Like, we just met. I understood that her dog was like her baby." And I was like, "That's the goal." Is like within 2 days, she trusted us with her dog.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a great story. Because yeah, something like a loved one, like a dog, shows like immediate trust, especially after you deliver it back. The dog's good. Like you're gonna have built on trust that is not even irrelevant, not even specific to the business service you're offering, but that's just more of a personal relationship trust that I think all good client relationships end up being is a very tighter, closer personal relationship on top of being able to deliver from the business services.
Definitely.
What have you seen as like what's been your I would say like your underlying like beliefs or views on like how to maintain or grow your agency? Like one of them sounds like is definitely trust is like building relationships off of trust. But what have been some of like the guiding principles or beliefs that you've built your agency on?
That's a great question because, growth is so hard. I think that it's gotten harder and harder for us, to be honest. Um, we have some long-standing customers, and the new business, sort of machine seems to be slowing down. I don't know if that's because, like, my LinkedIn is just full of, people trying to get something immediately, so you're just ignored. So it's like it's been tough with new business, and I think that there's such an insecurity right now in marketing that nobody knows exactly what to do. When I'm talking to CMOs, they're like, I don't even know what to do. They have these limited budgets, and they want to do everything, and we have to kind of say, yeah, you got to kind of pick one, right? And I think the to answer your question about the belief that we have is like it makes me think of this artist I love, Tom Sachs, and he says good work leads to more work. um it's not good work leads to riches. Good work just leads to more work. And that's kind of what we have bet the farm on, is like we're really, really good at telling stories, telling them well, via documentary, via product, launches, etc. And that's where we're betting the farm on, is like, hey, we're going to do a really good job, and hopefully that just leads to more work. That's the goal. And I think the way that I would say that, when I talk to my team, is like, listen, I want you to bring your art to the table, and we're going to have to do like three concepts here. So we need to do a safe one that pushes it a little bit, and then one that's way out there. Because there's a reason we're in the room, and we cannot forget that the reason that we're in the room is because we're the creative directors. We're the weirdos in the room. And we want to always do that because we're not walking around in pantsuits and living in spreadsheets. We're living in story and color. And I think so many agencies are forgetting. I think that, um, data driven things are great, and we use that to help us. But I think that that has become a monster in the room, that we've forgotten about. Actually, the reason that some of us in the creative space are at the table is because they want weird ideas. They want new ideas. They want something fresh. And I think more than ever, you need that to be able to, um, cut through the noise. And we bring that to the table for, customers. Like one of my customers, they sell ice cream machines. Pretty boring. It's stainless steel box, and we try to bring that to life, and we try to tell that story, rather than just show a machine and list the specs.
Yeah,
And I think the
absolutely.
last thing on that I'll say is that our big thing that we try to steer everyone towards is like, let's make the customer the hero, um, of your marketing. So if you're selling ice cream machines, or you're selling cabinets, or you're selling software, let's use the voice of that customer to do the selling, because that you can't argue with it. You do a documentary about how a customer uses, um, their product. That's your best salesman. Is that word of mouth. And you have Jim sell the thing that bought your product and loves it, instead of relying on data and cool pictures to sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, right. That's what creates the emotional connection that people buy and why people make decisions is try to think logically, but it all comes down usually to emotional, human instinctual decisions of why we choose one brand or another. And as a creative person, I imagine your whole goal is like, how do you capture that brand essence and then relay that story through your creative and make those emotional connections with whatever the target audience is? Which
Yeah,
is sounds like the
it's not
challenge.
it's It's the challenge, certainly, especially when people are asking for ROI and they wanna see the data, and so that's where the agency we partner with the data, they can help support that, and they can take what we make the stuff, and then they figure out how to distribute it and, make the data work because I'm not good at that.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the big challenges has been like who's been in the room to make those decisions. Is it the founder that's still passionate and involved in the weeds, or is it too much influenced by the financial or different departments that are making decisions on where the brand goes? Because I've just seen it from a paid perspective. Is so many brands have just focused on the bottom funnel fighting over the 3 to 5% of the audience that's in market to buy, and just coming up with creative and content strategies and ads that fit to try to sell and pull through that bottom of the funnel audience. But then they're completely forgetting about the other 95% of the audience that's not in buying mode right now, but maybe in the next 12 to 36 months. And it's like, how do you balance those two strategies and put some, eggs in the basket for the long term vision and strategy, and not just focus on what is my month over month quarterly growth. But I think that's the challenge, is that most of them have to report back on a monthly basis of like, how are we growing right now? Most marketing departments do. And so I think that balance is always the struggle, is how do you explain and then measure and attribute and track that over a longer time period?
Oh, man, that's I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I'd be on a yacht, um, i fishing right now. I don't I don't know, and I say that all the time. I'm like, "I don't know." I know how to make stuff well. I know how to, kind of bring a soul to a brand, and then I let the data wizards figure out the rest, and I think probably as you're saying that, I'm like, that's probably why I push people towards, letting the customer do the selling, just because I can't measure it, but I know it works. We do most of our customers are B2B. And so a lot of it is aligning with their sales strategy, or lack thereof, right? So we want to be building a bookshelf for the sales individuals to be able to pull from. So when they're trying to sell a product, and we've done a documentary about that exact product, they're able to use that in real life. That's like a big thing I've been talking with customers about, is like, what's your in real life strategy? Data's great, SEO is great, AI search is great, but what is that in real life strategy, especially for B2B? I think this is real important because B2B often has much smaller budgets.
Mm,
They might have a distributor network, or they might have, that might be a food ingredient company that's selling to Monster. Well, how are they connecting with those people? Well, usually it's personal and it's relational. And so we want to just kind of give the sales team the tools to do that, while all the digital is kind of running in the background supporting that. But I lead with that because I think, at least I when I run my business, those are my best customers, are the ones I have relationships with. And technically, we're a B2B company in a way. And so I just have been applying that to our customers because most of the time when we're in the room, um, they don't have a huge budget. And so they have to kind of pick and choose where they want to point their arrow. And so we have to narrow it down of like, okay, I'd love, we had a customer there that one of the C-suite people was like, I think we should do a Super Bowl commercial. And I was like, that's great, but you're a B2B company, number one. Number two, like your entire marketing budget for the whole year would be the catering budget for the shoot for the commercial, let alone the ad buy, let alone the production. And so a great idea, Bob, but we gotta we gotta narrow it down to like what can you do with a very limited amount of budget and time and resources, and that's we kind of go from there.
yeah, absolutely. I think that just comes down to like, what's the real strategy behind the brand, especially for B2B brands. I think struggle or a little bit more challenged because their audience is a little bit more narrow. They might be dealing with smaller budgets, but it's like, how do we take our fixed resources, our marketing budget, and point that in the best place to win. And I think oftentimes they generally try to spread too thin across too many things because they chase tactics rather than focusing on strategy. And so if you just chase tactics, you just look at what everybody else is doing and you're just like, oh, we need to do SEO, we need to do paid, we need to be on organic, we need to be on TikTok. We just keep stretching on so many different places rather than really consolidating, focusing on where's the most strategic place to place our marketing dollars and our content and our distribution and who's our audience and where are they. And I think that's where a lot of the challenge is, especially comparing B2B to direct to consumer.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time, in when we're building out strategy, it's like I think my opening slide on all my pitch decks are don't let's not chase after vanity metrics. And again, I'm speaking in the context of B2B, um, because I've seen companies to your point where they're like, we got to be on TikTok. And I'm like, yeah, but you sell like injection molding. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's not a little bit of a mismatch. Yeah.
And so I think that there is an elephant in the room on almost everything is like, we got to do social media. And sometimes we're talking them out of it. And sometimes we talk them into it and we'll build out, a content strategy for them. But if their sales team isn't aligned with the marketing strategy, it won't work. And if, quite frankly, if any company B2B wants to do like TikTok, then they should just hire somebody in house and do, in house stuff. And that's just not our target audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the same time, the other challenge I've really seen with a lot of B2B marketers is thinking that their audience is special. We're reaching this very specific doctors and they only spend time on these like trade publications and we only can reach them there. And it's like, guys, they true, they are probably the only ones that read those trade publications, but these are people and people spend time on all sorts of different ad channels. And that doesn't mean we need to be everywhere. It doesn't need to mean we need to be on Roku channel and YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram and TikTok and everywhere, but they do spend time on all of those. And like one strategy we've used for B2B marketing is that now you can really pull a list for any audience, any B2B audience. So you can get name, email address, phone number, all of those. So you can download, export those lists and not just rely on like just LinkedIn targeting, but you can take that list and target on Meta ads or on YouTube ads and target a very specific B2B list with your specific content and ads and get in front of your ideal customer. And it may not be in the trade publication space, and maybe on random Instagram or YouTube videos. But at the end of the day, it's who are you reaching, not where are you reaching them. And I think that's where a lot of B2B marketers get challenged or don't think about the whole ecosystem of how people, consume media.
Yeah, we have a new customer right now that we're producing a ton of content. Um, and they have an in-house team and they have had huge success with only doing retargeting. That's
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
So,
They're
and
getting a
they
lot
are
of
like,
attention elsewhere organically to their website, and then you could really retarget like everywhere. You could retarget on LinkedIn, you can retarget across Google and YouTube, on Meta. We can retarget now on TV. So you can place a retargeting pixel and retarget with connected TV ads and get ads across like a Hulu, Peacock, Paramount, Roku channel. So it's like you can retarget across any ad channel.
and they're an awesome client because they have all the data. And then they're like, they kind of put some really great constraints around. It's like, hey, we know that it needs to be a middle-aged dude doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, great, awesome. Instead of guessing, it's like, boom, we know exactly what we need to make and we know what colors need to be in there because they've A/B tested everything. And it kind of allows us to be creative then because I think that when you have a customer that is like, we don't really know what we want, that's with no constraints and total creative freedom. That's harder than when they say, here's the sandbox we need to play in, and here's when we need it by. And that's awesome because then we can really take that small little box and really push things inside the box, not outside the box. And I think that that's awesome when we can partner with people that kind of know exactly what they want to do. We can get in there and really crush it for them actually, because then there's immediate ROI. It's like, yeah, that video did well, or that photo series did well, or that carousel, or whatever the medium is, we know, and that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it makes perfect sense because if you really know who your audience is, what problems you're having, what are the solutions to those problems, at a very detailed level, you could probably create very specific content and
Yeah,
whether that's
and
ads or
sometimes
content site and everything.
sometimes in the B2B world, it's the audience isn't who you think it is. The audience sometimes in the B2B world ends up being sort of like internal in a way, where they just want to make stuff that they're proud of and they want to make stuff that like helps their salespeople. And that's great too. Like they're not interested in like, you know, shotgunning and trying to get all these people. They're really just trying to equip their salespeople, and they're trying to make some stuff that's good for employee morale. There's different. I read a book. I think it was Bogowski. I think it was. Like every single thing that you do in a company is marketing. So the toilet seats are marketing. The toilet paper is marketing, and I love that because even when we're making like um, an anniversary video for the company. It's like it's not going to hit the masses, but it's going to hit the internal team, which is a team of 500 employees. And that's great to understand that target audience when you're accomplishing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially in B2B sales, is that usually there takes more stakeholders to make a decision. That it's not just one person, right? That's kind of like speak to is like it's not
100%.
just one person or it's a group. Especially the bigger the organization and the more departments there are, usually the more stakeholders are in order to make a decision of what business service that they're going to use. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I would like to dive back into a little bit more of what you just mentioned about if you have a tighter information or a box of direction of what a brand needs, that's actually easier to produce content for that brand than just give a full creative freedom. And I imagine that's similar to oftentimes I always hear from creative people is that like, it's like, oh no, that's not what I wanted. Well, it's like, what do you want? Oh, I don't know, but not that, right? You avoid probably that situation that I
Well, we
always
we
hear
have
creative
those
people get
customers
upset
as
with.
well. We have
Yes.
those customers. 100%.
But, like, what does that look like from, like what do you see as, like, an ideal brand creative relationship look like? Like, what's the information you receive from your experience where you get the best output and results of creative?
Yeah, I mean, if you would have interviewed me when I was 25, I would have been like, that sucks. You're supposed to be like, go into a field and have inspiration and come up with, the next Nike slogan. But it's like the longer I've done this, the more I've realized that I'm simply a tradesman. I have this specific skill set, and it's similar to like remodeling a house. It's like, okay, what do you want? What are you trying to do? So when a customer comes to us and they're already informed with uh, data, like one of our target audience that we have on a like internal document, we're not interested in the company that does not have a marketing budget. No thanks, because then it's just you're trying to convince them to spend money and they get
For
sticker
sure.
shock, and it's just a waste of time. So what we are always interested in is we love to work with a CMO. Maybe they're a little disgruntled, or not disgruntled, dissatisfied with their agency, and they're looking to kind of change things up. But then if they have data and they already understand who their customer is, and then like that new customer we have, they're really, really, really good at digital marketing. They're really good at retargeting ads. So they understand their customer really well. And sometimes we'll come in and we'll help a customer do that for them. We'll help them understand who's that target audience, and we really help them through the really a, kind of an old school branding process. Is like we only have a limited amount of time and budget, and so we have to just narrow down who do you want to talk to, and we do customer profiles, and we'll kind of all agree that these are the type of people that we want to reach. But when a company comes in with that data already and they just need for us to metaphorically build a bookshelf and fill it with books or content, that's a home run for us because we can make Star Wars if you want. You know, it doesn't matter. And so I'm reading this book. It's called Inside the Box by David Epstein, no relation to Jeffrey. And it it talks about how constraints are actually better for the creative process, and then when you have creative freedom, it actually stifles creativity because you don't know where to put the paintbrush, essentially. And so we love that when somebody already kind of has an idea, or we love it when we can help them, you know, decide who are we going to go after.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it made it so much. I think it helps so much of the whole ad performance. The results you get out of that end up being significantly better because I feel like you're just starting. It helps you start closer to the goal line. Is that if you start with no direction at all, it's like you're all the way back on the 5 yard line. When you start with some very specific detailed data or context of the brand, the target audience, all of that, you're starting closer to because the goal is at the end of the day is to how do we connect and resonate with a customer and pull them through to want to choose this brand over brand B.
Yeah, I was just I was just at my grandma's and I was thinking about that very thing. My grandma had on there's this channel called Grit and it's all old Western movies. And every single commercial is like, you know, supplements for old people and shower renovation, retirement, life insurance policies. And I was like, holy cow, they really know their target audience, you know, and the commercials were great because they were targeted at my grandma.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that's where like we get like great results is when you get media that get content that gets in front of the right audience at the right time, that right message, that's when everything kind of unlocks. But it's like all of those things being in alignment. And it generally starts with like the brand first really knowing of like who is their target audience, what are the triggers, all of that, and then good creative and content, and then good targeting, whether it's organic or paid, is getting in front of the people at the right time, in the right,
Yeah.
situation.
And my background is documentary filmmaking. And that's basically what we do for everybody when we first start working with them is like, let's let's make an about video and then let's do a documentary about one of your customers. And in that process, we really then understand who their customer is. And we really understand the kind of messaging that is necessary to reach that potential customer. And then we kind of flip it and kind of go, well, let's let the customer be that voice. And so doing that homework up front before we do anything else is a huge part of um, why we continue, I think, to make good stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, Obviously, we're in this big transition phase with AI and advancements in technology and everything that like that. From like the agency perspective, creative process, what have you seen as like kind of some of the good opportunities that it's presenting or helping your team with? And like, what do you see as kind of the downside, downfall that it's offering?
Yeah. I would say I've talked to a lot of my peers and I'm fairly excited about it. I'm excited about the administrative stuff that is off of my plate as a creative person. That's not my strength. And we've been able to build out some things that help with that tremendously. Translating what's going on up here into an SOW, a statement of work, has just always been like the bane of my existence. And now I can jump on something like Loom, upload the transcript, make an SOW, done, and that's been awesome. And that frees me up to focus on the creative. From a creative standpoint, everybody's freaking out and we're kind of like, I told the team the other day, I was like, listen, I'm old enough to remember when websites came out and I was just getting started in print work. I worked the night shift at a print shop and there were all these agencies that were like, we're not doing websites. We're going to stick with annual reports and threefold brochures and print and they went out of business. And so I think it's exponentially bigger than when websites came out. But I think we are seeing it as like, okay, these are tools. It's no different than Photoshop. It's no different than After Effects. And there's so many tools that make our job easier, again, so we can focus on the creative. I think that as long as I've been doing this, there's always going to be people that are trying to hack the system. And that, yeah, you can generate pretty good video and pretty good ads with it. But I think my theory is like there's going to be a pendulum where it swings back to we actually want something that's authentic. You know, I mentioned the watching Grit with my grandma, and it was like the amount of those TV ads that were AI generated was astonishing, you know, and that's
Really?
fine.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in that kind of work. You know, I've dedicated my life to this craft, and I'm going to keep doing my craft as long as the people will pay me. But we'll use AI. You know, we have a large cabinet company, and we were in the middle of an edit, and I was like, oh, it'd be so cool. I wish we would have shot a time lapse of somebody in their house setting up these cabinets.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just took a weekend and I was like, I'm going to figure out Weavy. And I kind of prompt it with actual images from the cabinet company and said, make a time lapse. And now it took me all weekend. It would have been quicker to do the shoot, but, but those are the
But the
kind of
next
tools that,
time,
yeah, the kind of tool where you can have this afterthought. Oh man, it'd be cool if the cabinet, if we could do a time lapse of the cabinets being built and you're in the edit. That's great. Again, we can't forget what brought us to the dance, which is creativity. And that's creativity is going, okay, I've got this tool that I can use to make the piece better. That's awesome. And I'm excited. Uh, I'm really excited about it. And a good chunk of our revenue is photography, video, design, but I'm not worried. That's a lie. I'm worried about it, but I'm like, ah, I think people are going to want real shit. And I think that we can, as photographers and as designers, we can use the tools and it's going to be great. The other area that we use it for is in our pitch work. You know, we're basically, we just did a pitch where we used some AI photography that we built out again in Weavy. I don't know if you're familiar with that platform. It's really geared towards like creative agencies and designers. And we submitted pitch work and they were like, can we use those? You know, instead of hiring you to do the photography. And I was like, well, that sucks. But I was like, it took just as long as it would have taken to do a shoot. And you have a limited budget with your photography. So we can take the pictures. And then again, when you get into posts, you're like, man, I wish I would have had like a overhead shot, or I wish I would have had it from this angle. At least with photography for right now, I can take it in and go, put it over here, you know, and change those angles. That's great. It's like having a compositor on staff. So I don't think that it's going to take our jobs. I think it'll take some people's jobs, but I think what it'll do is if people choose to not embrace it, I think they'll be fine. But the people that do embrace it, I think there's this emerging role where, at least where I'm seeing is like we can actually do the work that we have always wanted to do with a very limited budget. But most clients don't know how to tell you if they want purple or brown. So I don't think they're going to be able to prompt AI to generate a whole ad campaign, right? And if they do, they're maybe not our target audience. So I think it's eliminating these like entry level customers. Like my son is graduating from college and I'm like, oh man, I cut my teeth doing graphics for my buddy's bands and for my local coffee shop. That's where I cut my teeth, like doing a logo for a skateboard brand or something that my buddy was starting. I think now AI will kind of eliminate that entry level $100 logo kind of thing. For me, I'm not interested in that anyways. So that's all right. But we see it as a tool that's going to, again, it's just another tool in the toolbox.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's the right approach and way to look at it is that it's a tool that allows us to do better work and more work much faster. than we ever could before. But you're totally right, is that the brand if brands aren't unwilling or unable to do creative services right now, I don't think an AI prompt is going to replace the creative process that it takes to produce something good. Whether you're using AI, video, or content is just a new means of instead of us going out and shooting production, we use this video AI solution to produce the final video. That obviously is going to replace a lot of kind of deliverables or people between that set of execution, but the creative process is not going to be replaceable because it's still going to take a good understanding of what's on brand strategy, what's a good outcome, what's good creative, all those inputs. I don't think brands in-house teams are going to have it, and they're going to be so wrapped up in their own world is that oftentimes you need an outside player to understand how to really position your brand or your product or service or anything else like that. But you're
Yeah,
totally right. It's
I
gonna
hope
replace a
so.
lot of in between jobs.
We have seen a lot more customers, especially like when it comes to like writing scripts, and we use AI sometimes, especially when you're doing something really technical, um, or like an instructional video that doesn't require quite a lot of creative. But I've had two video projects in the last month that the customer took our script and then ran it through their chat GPT, and then it's comical because we're doing a 90-second spot and they were like, hey, I ran this through our AI, whatever. And then it ends up being like a 7-minute script. And I'm like, hey, this is awesome. But if we do it's going to be a 7-minute script. We've had another one where they took it into ChatGPT, which now I can just tell. And then when we got into the edit, they were like, why did you use that statement? And I was like, well, you put it in your script. And they were like, I did? And it's like, so there's no like foundation or thought. They just were like, "Meh, let's just put this in there." And then they forgot what their GPT wrote for them. And I think that pattern I'm noticing, while those, sweet C-suite level people think they're awesome, it's going to bite them in the ass because it's like, number one, it's going to sound like everybody else's
Mhm,
shit. And number two, they can't really defend their ideas because they didn't put any thought into it. Because so much of what I do is defending why did you choose that? Well, we did some market research. You know, we looked into your target audience. This is why we chose blue. You know, and that part of the business, or that art of negotiating, and that art of taking a client along through the journey of creating something from nothing, that's a skill that I'm not sure it can replace it. Now, for lazy people and lazy companies, have at it. It's great. Like those are people that I'm not really interested in working with, and we want to collaborate with people and have a good time while we're doing it. And I think that the the rise of some of the lazy Chat GPT use on the free account is, I'm seeing it more and more and more. It is driving me crazy though. I'm like, oh my gosh, could you at least try instead of just throwing it in there and flopping it up? I mean, LinkedIn is just like, oh my gosh, I don't think
yep.
anybody writes for themselves anymore. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest downside is the AI slop content that's just flooded the scenes of all the social media feeds
Yeah.
and blog content, online content, all of that, and it's
I have a
very
friend
clear
that
and
is
easy to see.
I have a friend that is she teaches English at a high school, and I didn't graduate from college, so I'm not the smartest guy, but I was like, what is that thing that I said, I noticed this pattern in AI written content. It always does this thing where it'll say it's not it's not just mineral water, it's a refreshment to your soul. And she's like, "Oh, that's called an antithesis statement." And so then I immediately went into our Claude and I was like, "Don't ever use antithesis statements." and that I'm gonna ruin it for anybody listening to this. It's like when you're on LinkedIn, you'll see it. It's not this, it's that. It's not that, it's this. And I tell
Yeah.
everyone, I'm like on a mission. Train your GPT to not use antithesis statements because, but now I can't unhear it. And the funny thing is ours that I've trained, I'll remind it to not use it, and it keeps using it. So I asked Claude, I was like, are you like, is this like hardwired into the basis foundation of your programming? And it's like, yes, it is. Because we talk that way. And so it's really hard to train it out of the AI. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's
So you have to
that's my
monitor it.
rant.
Yeah, yeah, daily. That's hilarious. And
Yeah.
that's what I've heard somebody else say is that, like, you basically have, like, a graduate from every major university across every single subject matter, but it has a bad memory. Is that because even when you give it instructions, it still messes up and forgets what you told it to do before. Uh, but yeah, that and the M dashes. It always wants to give, like, the M dash, and it looks so weird, it doesn't make any sense. It's like
I don't think
little
I
things
ever
like that.
used an M dash before
No.
AI. I was like, I guess it's proper, but I don't use them.
Yeah. It just makes it stand out as fake content.
Yeah. But we love it. I mean, we use it from a ton on the admin side, a ton, and that's been awesome. And we use it as like a research assistant, you know. So when I'm researching a new customer, it's so great to be able to really have an understanding of their product and their customer that it would have taken me weeks, and that just makes our creative better, and that makes our ideas even more solid because then we can defend them. You know, this is why we came up with this concept. We think that your customer is da 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 da. You know, and sometimes customers don't want to pay for that market research, and so it's great to have that, even if we're doing a one-off video series or production. It's great to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are 2 great use cases. Great research assistant, great at doing admin tasks and automating, like, little detailed, mundane tasks that used to take a long time. Last question for you. If you go back, give yourself one piece of advice when you're starting your agency, what would it be?
I'll become an electrician.
Go into the trades. Yeah, a lot of opportunity there now. That's for sure. From what I
No,
hear, big
I
shortages in that
think
industry.
my advice would just, I think I said it earlier, it's like just do good work and it'll lead to more work. And I've kind of lived that. And I come from a family that all was in manufacturing, and it's like just act like a tradesman. Um because the tradesman that does good work will get more work and will get referrals. And um don't think that you're gonna be tomorrow doing shoots for Nike, and because that's, you might, you know, and but it is, you're there to serve people and you're there to help people. And when you start bringing your ego into the conference room or to the boardroom, that's where you're gonna be miserable. And if you can't do that, then you should probably go work at the bank or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of, especially newer, younger agencies have a lot higher churn is because 'cause they're missing out on the key factors, like your ultimate flywheel that keeps the engine running, business going is doing good work. If you don't do good work, your clients are gonna leave, and then you're in a constant battle of clients coming in and out of the door. You have a long-term clients if you continue to do work, and then those build because they stack. And that's always the big challenge for agencies is stacking clients. Like that's the way to growth is that you have to stack multiple clients on top of each other and be able to consistently do good work as you attain and acquire more clients and contracts. It's the only way. And I think a lot of agencies struggle because they can't maintain good work as they try to grow and then they end up churning. So you're kind of caught in this battle between do we grow or do we just stay here and do good work? Find that balance.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. You know, it's the hardest thing to, as someone that was in video production, to get away from the camera, to get out of Photoshop. because I did all those things, you know, and your job becomes, at least for me, it's like sales. I'm an idea machine, but then I gotta put the right people in place that can execute that work and do it well. And that has been a hard transition for me to become the evil boss. and to get all that stuff off my plate and really protect. I said it to the team the other day. My job is to protect the creative juices within our company, and my job is to maintain that. That's what brings us to the dance. And then also, I got to go out and sell that thing day after day, and then I have to do accounting because, and I hate it, but it's just part of what you got
That's
to
part of
do.
the business. But, yeah, I think that's a big challenge is, getting away from the things that you built your business on or your original skill set and doing other things that you have to do because it's just part of business. And I always have this frame of why not I try to hire for all the things that I'm like hate doing the most and don't want to do rather than I see oftentimes, especially specialists, they immediately try to just replace themselves. And I'm like, you're the hardest person to replace. Probably easier to replace you know, all these other administrative tasks first rather than trying to replace yourself, which is like kind of the core unique skill set. But it's a challenge regardless of growing teams and capabilities, services.
Yeah, I will say that the second I really woke up to that fact and got away from that, the business is better, the work is better. You know, there's uh, team members that are younger and they're hungrier than I am, and they're better. And so I try to hire people that are better at everything than me, and I'm just the mouthpiece at this point, and the guy who signs the checks. And that's been great. I love that. I know a lot of agency owners that hate that and they want to control every little thing. And I used to work for some of them, and it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to build a business that does good work and then be home and hang out with my kids. Like I don't care about, you know, the work that much. I want to make a living and then also live a little bit.
Yeah. The best part of building your own agency is you get to build it the way you want.
It's awful. It's also the worst part, but because it's your money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the the stressful part for sure.
Yes.
Right on. Awesome. Thank you, Corbin. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.